The Miami Dolphins entered the 2025 offseason with a lot of questions and a lot of holes to fill. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are doing our first ever mock free agency for the Miami Dolphins in the 2025 offseason. Before we get into it, if you like the work that we put out and you want to help the Tracy Take channel grow, the easiest way to help out the channel is by subscribing, hitting that bell, and also leaving a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Dolphins do this offseason. And Ryan, let's pull up over the cap here. So we have the full free agency list, and if you want to do the snaps percentage, just so we can kind of see who played the most snaps there. So guys like Robert Jones, Liam Eichenberg, Jordan Poyer,
Mhm.
Javon Holland, those are going to be some of the top guys that might be a top priority for the team, and just not like Moneyball approach, like numbers and stats that you got to somehow find and replace. Some of these guys, obviously, maybe like a good sayonara. The Dolphins' offensive line, in my opinion, still is struggling. So maybe guys like Liam Eichenberg, you let walk, or at least you can sign cheaply. I say let walk. It's like if you can get it for $1 million or $2 million again, keep him back
Yeah.
as depth pieces. But there's some guys on here I think they'd love to have back. Guys like Calais Campbell. I know he's only 39, but once again, though, too, like dude's still the biggest human being I think to ever play football. He makes all these grown athletes look like children. So, but once again, though, too, guys like Kendall Fuller, he's already off the team as well. Durham Smythe, they've already cut him as well. Same with Raheem Mostert. They've told that, like, hey, we're not going to re-sign you guys. So some of that's already been affected into the cap. But
Yeah.
Ryan, as the diehard Patriots fan, and you look at this Miami Dolphins team, what are some of the names that really stick out to you that you think are going to be top priority for the Dolphins, or to at least make
Yeah.
decisions on whether it's a go or no go when it comes to re-signing them again?
Yeah. Well, the big one for them this offseason is going to be Javon Holland, whether he returns or not. It's already kind of come out that they're probably not going to use the franchise tag on him. And so that will open him up to the open market. And there are a lot of teams out there that would be willing to pay him a lot of money. And so I do feel like that more than likely means that he will not be back for this team, but we'll just kind of have to see how this offseason plays out. I mean, they have a lot of interesting pieces, I think. I am curious, like a lot of these guys, like Jordan Poyer, Calais Campbell's 39, like they have some aging veteran pieces. So Emmanuel Ogba's 32. And so I am interested to kind of see what ends up happening here with the Miami Dolphins this offseason. But let's go ahead and just kind of get into the cap calculator here. So as you can see, we've kind of already done some cap manipulations here. So we were able to clear up a bit of cap space just by restructuring to his contract and got about $10 million back
Yeah.
out of his contract, just giving him the money up front and then removing it from
Well,
his contract.
and real quick, right before that, with some of these moves, even too, that they have made already, like with Raheem Mostert, Kendall Fuller,
Yeah.
whatnot, they're barely under the cap. They're sitting at about $1 million now. Before all
Yeah.
those moves, they were sitting at about 10-ish million over.
Yeah.
So there's not that much room to play with. So getting to an extension, he's going to be your quarterback for the long haul now, anyway. So like
Yeah.
we got to kind of kick that can down the road when it comes to 2026 cap space, but like we got to create space now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so able to alleviate $10 million on the cap space this year. A few other ways that we were able to alleviate some cap space. Bradley Chubb was just another cap casualty. You have Chop Robinson there to kind of take his place. Jalen Phillips should be coming back off of injury. And so I am curious to kind of see what Dolphins fans think of that. But you can save almost $20 million on the cap just by cutting him with a post June 1st designation. Another post June 1st cap casualty is going to be Teron Armstead. So you save about another $15 million by releasing him. You drafted Patrick Paul to be your left tackle of the future there. Teron Armstead is 34 years old. And so I do feel like that could be another potential option there, is moving on from him, alleviating another 15 million in cap space. And
Yeah.
one hypothetical scenario. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say too, it's like I guess there's two hypothetical scenarios. If they don't want to cut Teron Armstead, like if they want to keep him like somewhat like have this offensive line have some unity as well, and there's not really sure where to go with their left tackle, they could maybe restructure his deal. But what's interesting though, and Ryan, as you said though, is like he's gonna be 34, it'd be like it's potential that you're just going to be increasing the dead cap for a player that might retire here within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's what's going to be interesting about how they managed Teron Armstead's. We ended up uh, in this scenario cutting him, and because that $15 million is going to be a lot more important now for trying
Yeah.
to improve the team around him in general.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's like you're weighing, do you want Tron Armstead on your team or do you want $15 million to go spend in free agency? And so we opted for $15 million in free agency, especially again, Patrick Paul being on the roster, I think weighs heavily on our decision to do that. The other one, and this is not one that we are going to keep, but just a hypothetical situation. Like if you want to get close to that $60 million in free agency, you could trade away Jalen Ramsey. If you cut him, you don't save nearly as much money. But if
I
you
think you
do
save
trade him,
anything.
wait, what?
I don't think you save anything. I actually think if you just cut him, like
Yeah,
if you go to cut, I think you lose money actually. So go to
yeah.
cut,
You
yeah,
you would lose.
you lose everything. Like
Yeah.
scroll up and show. We're not able to see the adjustment.
Oh, sorry.
That's yeah. So do
So
that if you
yeah,
just
so
cut
you'd
him.
lose 14 million if you cut him, and then if you cut him pre-June 1st, you'd lose
Everything,
32.
pretty much
Yeah, you'd
everything.
lose everything. But if you trade him post with a post June 1st designation, you could clear up about another $10 million in cap space and get close to that $60 million mark. I don't think that is really an option. That's just the best way to. That's the most amount of money that we've figured out that we could save just by kind of experimenting. And so I do think that maybe that is an option. He is going to be 31 going on 32, I believe, this season. So he is an aging corner, but still one of the top performing corners in the league. And as you can see, we did not re-sign any internal free agents. Gonna kind of let all these guys hit the market here. Again, Javon Holland is going to be the big one, but I do just think they're not going to tag him, and I just think they'll probably get outbid for a player of his caliber. I mean, you have the Patriots in the division that need a free safety. That we had them pay him almost $22 million a year. In that video, I am sure teams like the Washington Commanders, the Los Angeles Chargers, like there are a lot of teams that desire his services. So I think that's going to be hard to kind of retain him. The good news with that is Malachi Starks is slotted in perfectly at number 13, I think, for the Miami Dolphins in the 2025 draft, and come in and can be that Javon Holland replacement right away. So interesting kind of debacle there. I'm curious to hear what Dolphins fans' takes are on that. But we do have them signing a big free agent to kind of come in and help solidify the interior of this offensive line and really protect Tua and kind of help this offense reach its full potential. And that is going to be Kansas City Chiefs guard Trey Smith. They do have, I believe, is it Austin Jackson is the right guard, or no, Isaiah Wynn is
Isaiah
the right
Wynn,
guard.
who is a free agent. Yeah,
Yeah, and so we're gonna come in. We're gonna give him the Robert Hunt deal. I think it was 4 years, $20 million a year. Guarantees and stuff will leave up to the team, but the Chiefs are not going to be able to pay him. They're in a cap situation of their own, and so I think if you go and you pay him, you now have a really solid interior. You have Austin Jackson out at right tackle. You just drafted Patrick Paul to be your left tackle of the future there in the second round last year. So I think you can make this move and sleep pretty good at night, knowing that Tua is going to be pretty well protected. This offensive line is going to block well in the running game and be physical there as well. So I like this move. I understand, like, oh, you're saying we can't afford $22 million for Javon Holland, but we can afford $20 million for Trey Smith. Well, one, I would rather invest $20 million into my offensive line to protect my franchise quarterback in Tua. And I don't think there will be as much of a bidding war for Trey Smith as I feel like Javon Holland will, especially like you have teams like the Patriots that are just going to throw a bunch of money at Javon Holland.
yeah.
So I do feel like that this is a realistic landing spot for Trey Smith here. So you get a franchise guard and really help out this offensive line.
Well, and one of the things too as well, so like I'm even thinking now they can really backload this contract because even if I'm looking at where the cap space is at right now, where you
Yeah.
go look at it's 28 million left in this year, 13 million in next year the way we have everything set up, but 134 million in 2027. They can really backload his contract, put guaranteed money, but then even move the cap
Yeah.
space back. So it's like even too as well, like they can make his cap hit for this year pretty small as well. We're not going to adjust right now just because of like that like you got to have like a degree in engineering to figure out the official cap space number. But so like it's something to think about as well when like I guess kind of some of these deals or some of these other restructuring deals. And so um it, it it's going to be interesting, I think, on how they focus on this because they're beefing up the interior as well. And then if they do end up moving from Teron Armstead, I think another guy then too as well at that 13 spot is going to be potentially a guy like Josh Simmons or Kelvin Banks and get that left tackle replacement and just start young and then just kind of go through the growing pains as
Yeah.
well while you've beefed up the interior. So if they end up going that route, and then they don't want to go for Malachi Starks, I think a guy that they can go and get in free agency to kind of help out with that safety position as a whole and just have some more back end help as well as going to be a guy like Justin Simmons. And so I think you pair him up then with Jalen Ramsey and then see what happens with Jordan Poyer as well. Like maybe they can re sign him cheaply if he wants to come back to Miami for another year. He didn't have the best year, but the Falcons got him for about 7 million. They can get him for about 7.5 million as well on a cheap 1 year deal going down to Miami. So I think that would be an interesting
Yeah.
potential replacement just for a 1 year kind of stopgap guy while you go into the draft, and maybe you can get a day 3 safety or another round 2 or a day 2 safety, just like how you did with Javon Holland if he does end up leaving.
Yeah, and a guy that actually I think plays fairly similar to Javon Holland would be like Billy Bowman Jr. out of Oklahoma. Like this is a pretty decent safety class. You also have Xavier Watts, Kevin Winston Jr. I believe out of Penn State. Like
Yeah.
there are a good bit of safeties in this class. Nick Eamon-Worry, who might is going to play a lot closer to the line of scrimmage than Javon Holland did. But all in all, I think that there's a lot of different shapes and sizes in this safety class that you can go and pick your favorite. So uh, lastly, I think for the outside the walls free agent edition, we're going to go and address the interior. So Calais Campbell is looking like he probably will not be back for this team to the Miami Dolphins. He might play another season, but I do feel like he's going to want to go to like a more surefire Super Bowl contender. So I like looking at things. I feel like BJ Hill would be a good just kind of run stuffing defensive tackle there for them. Just kind of get a 1 year. I believe he's approaching 30 or sorry, a 2 year, $10 million deal just to kind of come in there, play in that interior. This is now 2 years in a row where they've lost impactful interior defensive linemen and Christian Wilkins and now Calais Campbell. And so I do feel like going and looking at some of the defensive linemen that are available in free agency would be wise. And then also to go look in the draft. We mentioned Malachi Starks at 13. This is a really solid defensive interior class. And so maybe not at 13. I feel like that pick could be spent on positions that aren't quite as deep. But you look at the second or the third round, and the Dolphins really could go and make a splash on this defensive interior and get a guy that falls. Think like Darius Alexander, Shamar Stewart or TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. Like there's so many defensive interior guys in this class. Tyreek Williams, like there's a lot. And so I think going and getting a veteran here doesn't prevent you from drafting a guy on the defensive interior, but I think it's just good depth to add. And we overspent a little bit on our target. We usually try to get around 15 million, but I do think that you could maybe move a few dollars around to have some money left over to make some other offseason moves and sign your draft class.
Well, yeah, like the Trey Smith deal alone, if we actually went in, like I actually let's quickly go and do it. Undo Trey Smith here, just to kind of go and see, and like let's say his
Yeah.
cap hit, they end up making it actually more, 12 million on the first year, and then do like 18, 22, and then like 28 million.
Okay.
And we're just doing that now just on the base salary. I'm sure they could do prorated bonuses or some of the other ways that they can manipulate the cap space.
Yeah.
And so this is where like you can go and see them do that here. But while you're filling this in, it's kind of like when doing this research here, and I'm curious to see like Dolphins fans analysis on how you guys see the lineup? Because to me, some rosters you go and look like you got real like clearly really good receivers and offense, but like there's clear weakness on the defensive side of the ball. It's like how do you go and improve that there, or vice versa, or like they really need like they're losing a guy to free agency or like he's retiring or whatnot, and so you can kind of clearly go like that's a need to address or there's some weaknesses here. When I look at this Dolphins roster, it just seems like everything's a weakness. It's I mean, even Tyreek Hill and the receiving room, it's like when healthy and when Tua's on point and he's got time, like this offense can be legit. But it was
Yeah.
such a weird 2024 season for Miami with all the crazy injuries, and they started to get a little hot late, but then, like, they were still kind of like Jaylen Waddle was in and out. It's like Tyreek Hill didn't have the numbers that they had last year. Offensive line was still weak. Um, it's like you saw the rise of some of like good draft picks, like Chop Robinson, for example. So just the overall analysis of this roster, it's kind of confusing overall. And maybe it's just me. I get confused a lot. So maybe it's just me, but it's like I could see them going in so many different directions of free agency. I can see them going in so many different directions in the draft. Maybe they just kind of re-sign and keep what they got with some of these players and try and run it back. Because I also just looking at it now too, if they're looking at 2026, 2027, next year is going to be a tough year in free agency, but then they have a boatload of money. I think that's when the Tyreek Hill contracts and all that cap hit really starts to come off as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot of money there. So they could backload a lot of contracts, but do they want to be put in a similar situation of kind of what they're in now, where they have to be cutting some guys and maybe not be as aggressive during free agency as they like? And those are problems for tomorrow. They got to try and figure out the problems for today. But still, it's just something that I was just thinking about, kind of looking at everything here.
Yeah, and it is interesting to kind of see, like, especially going through this with a few other teams already, like kind of seeing how other teams structure their contracts and manage the cap space. So I'm really interested to see, like, when we get to Philadelphia and see how they manage their contracts and what those numbers look like. So
Yeah.
I mean, all in all, the Dolphins, like, they have a good team. They will always be a threat to win games. I do feel like I do share some of the concerns I think that you just laid out of, like, I think they're okay. And they just, I don't know if they really have the money to go out and really improve. But
Well,
I think
it looks like they have the roster and the contract set up for a
yeah.
team that is winning right now. And I don't think they can win right now. Like, I think they
No.
need to blow
Yeah.
it up. Blow it up's a harsh word, but I have questions just on their capabilities to be the top team, and it's kinda unfair to them because they're in the AFC, and when I look at the AFC, like, you got the
Yeah.
Ravens, you got the Bills, you still got the Chiefs, like, I don't care what people say, you still got the Chiefs. The Broncos are rising, the Chargers are rising. I think Houston's gonna bounce back. Who knows what could happen with the Colts, and maybe even the Jags can bounce back as well. But they're kind of also in a similar boat. Like, those last 2 teams are kind of in, like, a similar boat. And I'm sure I'm even missing a couple teams. I'm trying to even think. The Patriots have a bunch of money. Can they go and become a contender? So I just think about all that. Then I look at this roster for Miami, and it just brings up some doubt. I don't have as much confidence in this roster and with their contract structure to go and find the pieces to fix their problems to where they can be competitive
Yeah.
in 2025. But who knows? I mean, like, if they are such a unique and dynamic team. No other team in the NFL is like them, and they're hard to play against when healthy. And if they can stay healthy, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the craziest things to me is just, like, they do have the capabilities to just drop 45 points in 3.5 quarters and just totally blow a team out. But they also have the capability to go in there and lay an egg, and get completely run over. So I don't know. The Dolphins are a bit of an enigma in my opinion. Like, you just kind of don't know what you're gonna get. My biggest thing, and I'm a Patriots fan. I'll say it. Like, and to be fair, we haven't beaten Tua in like 3 or 4 years, but uh, I my opinions of Tua, I think, are reflective of the Dolphins. I feel like Tua is a good quarterback in a perfect situation, but when things are not perfect, that is when like things start to go awry. And I feel like that's just this team. Like if they're not playing on like in perfect conditions, if they're not playing in a against a team whose game plan suits them well, like they're just not going to be as good. And so like that's just kind of how I feel about the Dolphins. They're good when the conditions favor it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's an interesting conversation to have, and I know, like especially early on in the season, there were conversations going on about Mike McDaniel maybe not being there as the head coach anymore, and then moving on from him. And so I'm curious as like to see how 2025 goes, and if those conversations kind of continue. But for now, that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Miami Dolphins mock free agency. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.